Okay, we're calling the meeting to order. First on the agenda is a public comments period. Murray, your show. 2 minutes, please.
For those of you who don't know, I'm supposed to be in Switzerland in the Swiss Alps today hiking. I'm not. I'm here because they took a chunk out of my shin 2 weeks ago, and it's an open thing, and I can't travel out of the country. My life got turned upside down in about 15 seconds. I realized that, as Steve Jobs said, knowing you're facing the end, though I'm not. But it focuses you on what needs to get done and what you pay attention to. So I'm paying attention and being a little bit more either nasty or forthright. You can take your choice of words. David Sampson at the Port Authority meetings always says at the beginning of the meeting, if you'd like to meet with somebody, make a request. And I got involved with the design of the toll plaza, the George Washington Bridge, and I said, hey, I'd like to meet with your people, and I got stonewalled, meaning, we don't meet with you. And I brought it to the attention of somebody on the board, and the next thing you know, in 24 hours, I had a meeting with 6 of the significant people who make the decisions about the layout of the toll plaza. The problems there are pretty much the same as here, and multi-millions of dollars are involved because the design that they were using and planning is outdated, the same as the designs you're using are outdated. For the small cost of some paint on the lines and removal of a toll booth where it doesn't belong, traffic would be speeded up, the roads would be safer, but I can't get to first base with you guys any more than I had that problem with then until somebody up there said, hey, there's a lot of money involved here. The amount of money we're talking about that you're using improperly is quite large. Yes, Alan? To wrap it up, please. Okay. Coming down to it, I need to meet with some decision makers who can evaluate the toll plaza for the future, because what you've designed so far has been wrong. Now, how do I get to meet those people? No answer?
Okay, moving along. The first enumerated item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, page 1. We have a motion, a second, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Committee work plan. Are there any changes to the work plan?
No changes to the work plan.
Okay, we'll move the agenda. Number 3, report on operations / safety report for February of 2012.
I draw your attention to page 13. David Moretti will present.
Good afternoon. In February, there were 21,238 crossings, which was an increase of 1,062,000 against the prior February. The extra day this year in February caused by the leap year generated 742,000 additional crossings. Weather was also warmer and drier than a year ago. There was no snowfall, and rainfall was only about 1.3 inches. The average price of gas was $3.77, which was 45 cents per gallon higher than last year and 19 cents higher than January's average of $3.58. Easy Pass crossings for the month were up 4%. Cash paying crossings in February were down 7.6%. Passenger vehicle travel was up 1.6%, and trucks increased by 1.4% versus the prior year. All facilities recorded an increase ranging from 0.7% at the Henry Hudson Bridge to 3.3% at the 2 Rockaway crossings. Year-to-date through February, there were 43 million crossings, which is 2.4 million more than the comparable period a year ago. And finally, the traffic for March, we have an estimate of 23.9 million crossings, which is almost exactly the same number that we had in March of 2011. That ends my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions?
Okay. the safety part.
Move on to report on...
When did the Rockaway rebate issue go into effect?
Based on the legislation, I believe in April, we have not completed the back office functions, but we will rebate the residents of the designated zip code back to the April date.
So from April 1st on is the date on which you're actually, it's in effect, April 1st. So I'd be interested in seeing whether those numbers change based upon the change in circumstance. So the first month we would see that would be the April month, and then more likely the May month.
I would assume so, yes,
Okay.
if we're going to see a change.
If we're going to see a change. But
Yes.
I'd be interested in
Yes.
how that affects what's going on. Thank you.
We move on to the safety report. Andy?
Good afternoon. On page 26 and 27 are 4 charts and 4 graphs showing 5-year summary, customer collisions and injury collisions, and employee accident reports and lost time injuries through February. Please note that the injury rate per million vehicles has declined 5.5% from last year's level, and that for the employees, there are 14 less lost time injuries than last year. And unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
We'll move on to page 29, report on Easy Pass performance. Don?
Okay, thanks, Jim. The Easy Pass market share for the month of February was 81.2%, almost 2 percentage points higher than the previous February. More than 10,100 Easy Pass accounts were opened in February, including more than 3,200 on-the-go accounts, more than 31% of the total. In-lane sales of the on-the-go program have now been expanded to all facilities. Since our last meeting, sales have begun at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, the Verrazano, and the Rockaways. The results continue to be extremely positive. Since the program began last June at the Henry Hudson, we've sold almost 32,000 tags in the lanes. Daily sales have reached as high as 853 on Saturday, April 14th. The weekend sales in particular have been very impressive. I won't go through all the numbers for each facility, but we're up to almost 9,900 at the Henry Hudson, 6,900 at the Throgs Neck. In just the 2 weeks since the VN began selling, we're at 1,378. So it's been a success at everywhere we've started selling. If there's no questions on the Easy Pass report, I'll move to the financial report, which begins on page 35.
I have a silly question. Why does the Bronx Whitestone Bridge show such a relatively low Easy Pass percentage compared with the other crossings? Is there some reason for that?
I think it's both the Whitestone and the Triborough Bronx Plaza. They both show relatively low market shares, and the market research we've done, it's mostly due to, it seems that the demographics, it tends to be younger, a little lower average income, seem to be more cash-oriented kind of type of customers at that facility. But we have seen big increases at both those facilities over the last couple of years, especially in the last 12 months.
Just almost 3.5% at the
Yes.
RFK Bronx last month.
That's right.
By itself.
Yes, that's
So,
right.
Yeah.
So the trend is good. Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. While you have people stopped to make that transaction, does it make sense to use that opportunity to, in a sense, try to understand why it was they hadn't bought it before, or applied for them before, just in order to use it as a tool to better market stuff in the future?
Well, we've done yearly surveys of our customers to try to analyze and do that research in lane at the time would cause backups in the toll lanes. So we try to do market research that addresses our concerns, but off premise. We have, I believe, done online.
Yeah, we'll be starting one in the fall, I believe. This
So
year's.
we do the market research. We just don't conduct it on the plaza at the time of the transaction. So that's where we're able to redefine how we're reaching out to those that have not purchased and come onto the market share. And part of that is the purple card that we use for the cash customers and selling in the lanes. And so we're using our market research to redefine what we do and to address the concerns of those that haven't purchased an Easy Pass prior. And that's why you see the success of the in-lane.
Yeah, it's just terrific.
Of course, now that there's such a differential between the cash and the Easy Pass, there's a greater impetus for people to purchase it. Now, I'm sure that was the last straw for some people.
There is a deep discount for those who choose to buy Easy Pass. Naturally, market research indicates that there are reasons why people do not afford themselves of it, and some of it's financial, and therefore that's why we developed the purple card, to allow them to redirect their funds in accordance with their pocketbook. And we're finding great success with that. So
There's some people that don't want to be traced.
well, there are always people that choose not to purchase it, and with those we'll always have a cash lane or two open for them. But as you see from the numbers, there's an ever-increasing growth. So we're very happy with the research and what we're doing to address.
Commissioner Merdler.
I think Jim will agree with me. There are certain segments of the community that find Easy Pass anathema because they believe it enables others to trace their movements, to know where they are, where they've been, and where they're going. If, for example, you have a conversation with the borough president of the Bronx, I think he will tell you that there are those kinds of occurrences. There's not much you're ever going to do about those, short of selling anonymous, non-traceable kind of passes for a week at a time or the like.
Thank you. Any other comments?
We'll move on to the report on finance.
Okay, thanks. That starts on page 35, the February report. Toll revenue through the first 2 months was up 3.3%, about $7.3 million against the budget, and it's a reflection primarily of the favorable winter weather we saw. Traffic was up about 3.8% through February against the budget. Expenses are down through February by 13.8%, about $8.5 million. That's primarily due to the timing of non-labor expenses in professional service contracts, maintenance, and other contracts, as well as lower labor costs. I'm about $3.7 million below budget year to date, and that includes about $1.5 million in lower payroll costs due to primarily the vacancies, as well as $800,000 in lower overtime costs, about 19% below budget. Overtime's better than planned this year, due also to the favorable weather we've been seeing, as well as the ongoing scheduling efficiencies that are being carried out by our operations department, and which we've talked about. We'll be happy to talk more if you have any questions. Our support to mass transit was approximately $142 million through February, about 20% better than planned. And that concludes the financial report. If there are no questions on that, I'll move on to the year-end operating results, which begin on page 47. We've reported much of this information to you already over the last couple of months, so I'll try to just briefly summarize. Our toll revenue in 2011 was $1.501 billion, about $3.1 million higher than our final estimate. Traffic totaled 283.5 million, just about even with our final estimate. Non-reimbursable expenses were approximately $359 million, about $18.7 million lower than what our final estimate was in November. Labor expenses about $2.4 million lower out of that 18.7, due primarily to the vacancies, and about $1.1 million below plan on overtime. And non-labor expenses about $16 million lower, due primarily to lower spending in maintenance and other operating contracts, professional service contracts, materials and supplies, some of that due to timing. And total support to mass transit came out to $939.6 million, $37.3 million above what our final estimate was. and $44 million better than our adopted budget. That's it.
So we've just about almost achieved the magic contribution of $1 billion a year to mass transit, and that's a terrific result.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move next to the capital program report. Joe?
Good afternoon. The capital program report begins on page 71 of the book. In March, we made 10 commitments with a total value of $7.5 million, bringing our year-to-date in commitments to $13 million compared to a planned $15.4 million. The biggest commitment made in March was a design commitment for TN49, replacement of the Throgs Neck suspended span decks at $5.1 million. In March, we had a completion at Verrazano Narrows Bridge for VNO3C. That's one of the phases of our toll plaza improvement project at the VN Toll Plaza at $13.8 million. And this completion, which was achieved on schedule, brings our year-to-date completions to $13.8 million. There were 7 closeouts in March, and bringing our year-to-date closeouts to $40.2 million. Overall, we remain on course to meet our overall $580 million in planned commitments for 2012. As noted at previous meetings, 80% of the commitment plan is to be awarded in the third quarter of the year, and as of now, we are on target with all of those major third quarter commitments. Unless there are any questions, that completes my report.
Nice job on repaving the RFK Triborough Bridge. I know that was a lot of small projects, but it's worked out extremely well under very difficult circumstances. On the other hand, since it's the only way to get to your headquarters, I assumed that you would do it perfectly anyway, but so far you have.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll direct you to page 81, procurements. Tony, please.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon. There are 7 procurements this month totaling about $35.44 million. There were no non-competitive procurements. The 7 procurements are competitive and are summarized as follows. Starting on pages 85 through 87, there are 4 personal service contracts, each for a duration of 2 years, with consultants who will provide biennial bridge inspection and miscellaneous design services at the Robert F. Kennedy and Verrazano Narrows bridges. The inspections are required by the New York State Department of Transportation. The total amount of the 4 listed contracts is $8,740,598. The second item is on pages 88 and 89. It is a 4-year personal service contract with Dewberry Engineers to provide design and construction support services for Project BB54, entitled Rehabilitation of the Brooklyn Plaza at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, in the amount of $1,371,860. At a future date, the cost for construction support services will be presented to the board for approval. Please turn back to page 83. Item 3 is a 2-year personal service contract with Queens Trucking School to provide commercial driver training courses to prepare our maintenance employees for the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, or Pennsylvania State Department of Motor Vehicles commercial driver's license written and road tests for an amount of $58,900. And the summary of the 4th procurement is on page 90. Yeah, there are a few employees who reside in Pennsylvania. On page 90 is the modification to a personal service contract with Parsons Transportation Group of New York for $8,354,051 to add design support services during construction, as well as additional design services for Project VN80, upper-level deck replacement at the suspended span of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Next, on page 91, there is a modification to a miscellaneous service contract with Lund Fire Protection Products Company to rehabilitate fire suppressant systems located at 2 facilities in the amount of $52,145. The sixth and seventh items on pages 92 and 93 are modifications to public work and miscellaneous procurement contracts. The Judd Law contracting modification on page 92 is for additional work as well as credits in a net amount of $1,832,137 under contract HH10, entitled Replacement of the Upper Level Curb Stringers and Roadway Lighting at the Henry Hudson Bridge. On page 93, under our contract with Telvent USA, we are exercising two one-year renewal options in the negotiated amount of $15,028,370 to maintain and repair the hardware and software components of the electronic toll registry system at all B&T facilities. And this month, there are no ratifications.
Are there any motions?
So move.
Seconds? Comments? Hearing none, I move the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
That ends our report. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes the report for purchasing companies. Thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah, we're getting there.
Just to let you know, we did